I'm a great believer that artists should never apologize for their art. You put something out there, you paint a watercolor, you make a joke, you make a television show, whatever it is, if people are offended, that's their problem.
All right, folks, let's dive into Rowan Atkinson. Yes, the legend, the comic genius, and the man behind Mr. Bean. Not only has he perfected the art of making US laugh without uttering a single word, but he's also stepped into one of today's hottest debates, free speech. Atkinson's perspective is sharp, witty, and unapologetically bold. He challenges the growing culture of outrage with ideas that just might change how you see censorship. If you're ready for a dose of straightforward, thought-provoking truths, you're in the right place. And hey, if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening discussions. Let's kick things off with Rowan's unique take on the real purpose of comedy.
Do you worry about where comedy is going?
Not greatly, because it's a cyclical thing. You know, 1 minute, certain jokes or certain attitudes and outlooks are just out of fashion. And in the end, the whole point of a joke is to entertain people. And if people are not entertained, then you haven't fulfilled your brief. And so I'm a great believer that we must have free expression, and in comedy you must be able to make jokes about absolutely anything. I mean, the only question is you would be wise to choose a context in which it's going to be appreciated, because not all jokes suit all contexts. The joke you tell around a table in a restaurant with some friends is not necessarily something for primetime TV. That's a pretty obvious statement, but you'd be surprised how people like to abuse the context of comedy. And people often say, did you hear that joke that comedian said in that Netflix special? Did you think that was right or wrong? And all I say is, I wasn't there. I haven't heard the joke. I wasn't in the audience when the comedian said it. I don't know what the atmosphere was in the room. If people pay to see a comedian, they've got to accept whatever they provide. I'm a great believer that artists should never apologize for their art. You put something out there, you paint a watercolor, you make a joke, you make a television show, whatever it is, if people are offended, that's their problem. It's not yours. You've done your bit. If they don't want you to work for them again, then that may become your problem, but you've done your bit and you've done your best, and it's up to the audience to judge. I'm a great believer that if a joke has an appreciative audience, no matter how small, no matter who they are, then it is worthy. It should be, as it were.
Rowan Atkinson doesn't mince words. The purpose of a joke is to entertain. Plain and simple. Sounds obvious, right? But in today's world, where every punchline is scrutinized, his take is refreshingly straightforward. Here's the kicker. He believes comedians shouldn't have to apologize just because someone takes offense. Think about it. If you buy a ticket to a comedy show, you're choosing to step into that world of humor. You signed up for the jokes as they are. No substitutions, no special requests. And Rowan's commitment to free expression goes far beyond comedy. He's got some strong views that apply across the board. Let's unpack what he has to say.
When it comes to the consideration of any issue relating to free speech, it's my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely. The most precious thing in life, I think, is food in your mouth. And the third most precious is a roof over your head. But a fixture for me in the number 2 slot is free expression, just below the need to sustain life itself. That is because I have enjoyed free expression in this country all my professional life, and fully expect to continue to do so. Personally, I suspect highly unlikely to be arrested for whatever laws exist to contain free expression, because of the undoubtedly privileged position that is afforded to those of a high public profile. So my concerns are less for myself and more for those more vulnerable because of their lower profile. Like the man arrested in Oxford for calling a police horse gay, or the teenager arrested for calling the Church of Scientology a cult, or the cafe owner arrested for displaying passages from the Bible on a TV screen. When I heard of some of these more ludicrous offences and charges, I remembered that I had been here before in a fictional context. I once did a show called Not the 9 O'Clock News some years ago, and we did a sketch where Griff Rhys-Jones played Constable Savage, a manifestly racist police officer to whom I, as his station commander, is giving a dressing down for arresting a black man on a whole string of ridiculous, trumped-up and ludicrous charges. The charges for which Constable Savage arrested Mr. Winston Kadogo of 55 Mercer Road were these: walking on the cracks in the pavement, walking in a loud shirt in a built-up area during the hours of darkness, and one of my favourites, walking around all over the place. He was also arrested for urinating in a public convenience and looking at me in a funny way. Who would have thought that we would end up with a law that would allow life to imitate?
Rowan Atkinson keeps it real. The goal of a joke is to make people laugh. Simple as that. It might seem obvious, but in today's climate, where every joke is analyzed to death, his perspective feels like a breath of fresh air. Here's the standout point. Atkinson doesn't think comedians should apologize just because someone didn't like the joke. After all, if you buy a ticket to a comedy show, you're agreeing to experience that style of humor. You're there for the full menu, not a customized order. But his stance on free speech doesn't stop at comedy. Rowan's got powerful opinions on expression that extend far beyond the stage. Let's dive into his thoughts.
Outlawing of insult is that too many things can be interpreted as such. Criticism is easily construed as insult by certain parties. Ridicule easily construed as insult. Sarcasm, unfavourable comparison, merely stating an alternative point of view to the orthodoxy can be interpreted as insult. And because so many things can be interpreted as insult, it is hardly surprising that so many things have been, as the examples I talked about earlier show. Although the law under discussion has been on the statute book for over 25 years, it is indicative of a culture that has taken hold of the programs of successive governments that, with the reasonable and well-intentioned ambition to contain obnoxious elements in society, has created a society of an extraordinarily authoritarian and controlling nature. That is what you might call the new intolerance. A new but intense desire to gag uncomfortable voices of dissent.
Rowan Atkinson calls it out. Society has grown so sensitive to criticism that even light sarcasm is treated like a crime. He calls this phenomenon the new intolerance, a false sense of open-mindedness that only accepts those who share the same views. It's a kind of groupthink disguised as progressiveness, but instead of fostering real progress, it shuts it down. And he's got a point. When everyone's busy trying to silence opposing voices, who's left to ask the important questions? That's where Rowan's solution comes in. Let's break it down.
Softly spoken, highly educated, liberal-minded people. I'm only intolerant of intolerance. And people tend to nod sagely and say, oh yes, wise words, wise words. And yet if you think about this supposedly inarguable statement for longer than 5 seconds, you realize that all it is advocating is the replacement of one kind of intolerance with another, which to me doesn't represent any kind of progress at all. Underlying prejudices, injustices, or resentments are not addressed by arresting people. They are addressed by the issues being aired, argued, and dealt with, preferably outside the legal process. For me, the best way to increase society's resistance to insulting or offensive speech is to allow a lot more of it. As with childhood diseases, you can better resist those germs to which you have been exposed. We need to build our immunity to taking offense so that we can deal with the issues that perfectly justified criticism can raise. Our priority should be to deal with the message, not the messenger. As President Obama said in an address to the United Nations only a month or so ago, laudable efforts to restrict speech can become a tool to silence critics or oppress minorities. The strongest weapon against hateful speech is not repression, It is more speech.
Rowan Atkinson believes in creating a stronger society, one that can handle offense without falling apart. Instead of policing speech, he suggests we face it, let it slide, and build resilience. It's like an immunity booster for the mind. The more we're exposed to challenging ideas, the better equipped we'll be to handle them. If we want a world capable of grappling with tough issues, we need to stop running from discomfort and start truly listening, even when it makes us uneasy. Who knows? We might just come out stronger because of it. But Rowan doesn't stop there. He also calls out the outrage industry, a media machine that thrives on exaggerating issues and stirring up drama. Let's unpack why this is such a problem.
You know, the freedom to be inoffensive is no freedom at all. The repeal of this word in this clause will be only a small step, but it will, I hope, be a critical one in what should be a longer-term project to pause and slowly rewind a creeping culture of censoriousness. It is a small skirmish in the battle, in my opinion, to deal with what Sir Salman Rushdie refers to as the outrage industry. Self-appointed arbiters of the public good, encouraging media-stoked outrage to which the police feel under terrible pressure to react. A newspaper rings up Scotland Yard. Someone has said something slightly insulting on Twitter about someone who we think a national treasure. What are you going to do about it? The police panic and they scrabble around and then grasp the most inappropriate lifeline of all, Section 5 of the Public Order Act, that thing where you can arrest anybody for saying anything that might be construed by anyone else as insulting. You know, they don't seem to need a real victim. They need only to make the judgment that somebody could have been offended if they had heard or read what has been said, at the most ludicrous degree.
Here's the unsettling part. Authorities often feel pressured to act, even when no real harm has been done. That's what worries Rowan Atkinson the most. When could be offensive becomes the basis for punishment, freedom of expression starts to feel less like a right and more like a fragile privilege that can be taken away at any moment. Rowan's message is a wake-up call for a world increasingly scared of honest conversation. If we truly value free expression, we have to be willing to engage with opinions that challenge and even unsettle us. What do you think? Do you agree with Rowan's take on free speech and comedy, or do you see it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you.